Welcome in, everyone. I am David Gow. Next to me, Carla Dawson. And Carla, it's great to have you. I had this vision that you were out dancing the streets in New Orleans late into the night, celebrating that Eagles win.
I was dancing in my living room, not only to Kendrick Lamar, but to the big victory. I was pulling for the Eagles. I'm not gonna lie.
You were pulling for the Eagles. I really didn't have a horse in this race. I didn't care so much who would win. I just wanted a good game. And it was a good game for Philly, but not a very competitive game.
No, it was very surprising, honestly, but not if you're in the Eagles organization. You're not surprised. This is what you are built to do. And when you hear three-peat over and over and over again, in fact, last year when Kelsey and Mahomes were on the platform on the field with the warm Lombardi trophy just put in their hands, they were already talking about a three-peat. You don't think Philadelphia heard that after what happened in Super Bowl 57? So I think there was a lot festering, and they could not wait to unleash those horses on the Chiefs.
Well, unleash it, they did. And it was a big day for Jalen Hurts. He got the MVP. And you've chronicled some interesting history of how Jalen Hurts got here. It's really interesting when you go back to his days at Alabama.
I mean, he really is. He is a winner and he is a leader. And it's all come from basically weaknesses in himself because he says, if you're not winning, you're learning.
Mm.
And that's the way that he's rolled. And think about it. So he was here in Channelview High School. His dad was a football coach. He gets recruited to Alabama. He's the first quarterback there that is not a game manager. He's a dual threat quarterback and a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, it's interesting. Before he arrived in Alabama, it felt like they were that old school Alabama, solid defenses,
Yep.
great run game, and an occasional pass to keep everyone honest. But Jalen Hurts did change that at Alabama.
No, it was so true, and I think, a lot of their defenses in the SEC didn't know what to do with them. So, but remember, they went to the national championship game against Georgia in Atlanta, and Jalen Hurts had a rough first half. So when they came out the second half, Saban benches him for this guy named Tua Tagovailoa, and there's Jalen Hurts sitting there watching Tua launch this rocket of a pass to Heisman winner Devontae Smith in the end zone for the win. So what happens? Jalen Hurts stays another season at Alabama watching Tua take over. He lost the starting job.
Well, to lose the job in the middle of the national
Oh,
championship game
for
at
all to
halftime
see.
had to be, yes, a very visible benching. And then to have to sit behind two of the following season must have been devastating as well. He obviously transferred to Oklahoma.
Well, they went to the national championship
Oh,
the next
I
year,
missed an important part of this. Yes.
and Tua got injured, and so Jalen came back in and ended up winning it for them, so that was great, but nonetheless, then he transferred to Oklahoma, but you never saw or heard him complain. He took everything class personified. I mean, think about it, David. I wouldn't wanna be benched on a national
Yep.
championship game on that stage. Anyway, goes to Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. He's second in Heisman voting, so he doesn't get that. So in his NFL draft, he drops to the second round, number 53, because people have just kind of, discounted him.
Well, the reputation at that time was he was a dual threat quarterback, but not exceptional at passing. He obviously had the physical attributes to run well, and he passed pretty well. But
Mhm.
that's what led him to go in the second round and not in the first.
And I think that narrative definitely followed him into the
Yep.
NFL because he was drafted by Philly. Credit brilliant Howie Roseman, who we will get to definitely later in this broadcast. But he came to back up, need I laugh, Carson Wentz. Oh, Lord. But I mean, look at this. I have to say, thank you, Carson Wentz, because it was Philly moving on from him and Nick Foles, obviously won that Super Bowl with him under Doug Peterson. But then Nick Foles retires from the NFL. And by default, Jalen moves up into the role. Well, and that's when, Howie Roseman got all the pieces around him and everything else. But he has, and then, so I think at every stage, Jalen Hurts has been so talented, but so dismissed. He's had hard things happen to him in the public eye. Losing Super Bowl 57 when he played the most phenomenal game 38-35 on a last-second field goal, that kind of thing.
Yeah, he can't hang his head on that. I mean, yes, they lost, but he did play very well in that loss.
Yeah, he did have a turnover, which he regrets,
Yep.
but nonetheless, all this is fuel, and so I think we had just talked about Tua Tagovailoa, and Tua went in the first round, Jalen went in the second round, just interesting things. When we were talking about Tua's pass to Devontae Smith that won them the national championship game versus Georgia, last night when that happened in the third quarter, first play of a drive on a short field that Kansas City kept giving Philadelphia, that long 46-yard, beautiful dime to Devontae Smith in the end zone. I thought, there it is. It's full circle. This is what I didn't get to do, but I'm going to do it my way on an even bigger stage against an even more formidable opponent. And we're going to thwart this three-peat. And this is how it's going to happen.
And then
I love it.
That it was Devontae Smith in both cases.
Yes.
It's just such a small
The Alabama
world,
connection.
the irony of it all.
Yeah. I thought that was just really cool. I loved it.
That was a big moment. Obviously, that was the moment when it seemed like the game had been iced. To me,
yes, you're right. Thank
I mean,
you.
Going back, a little bit earlier to me, when the Chiefs were down late in the second quarter, but they had the ball, one more drive before the end of the half, and then they were going to get the ball to start the second half. They had two possessions in a row.
Back-to-back possessions.
Back-to-back, a chance to really close the gap. And Mahomes hit DeAndre Hopkins in the hands, and Hopkins had a lot of room ahead of him, but he dropped the pass. If he had caught it, they would have gone down and gotten some points, maybe only 3 points, but then a chance to come back out in the second half and get some more points. That was a big moment to me. I thought Hopkins' drop was a turning point. It was almost as if you could feel a collective sigh on the side of the Chiefs bench. You saw Chris Jones
he collapsed
over
to
in
the ground.
disappointment.
Yep.
Because it was almost, oh my goodness, this is not our day.
No, I thought the same thing, David. That's a great point to bring up, because even if it had just been a field goal, that's momentum that you carry into that locker room.
And then they might have started the second half with a little more bounce in their step, a little more opportunity. And the Eagles might have been second guessing. Is there a chance these Chiefs can make yet another comeback? But all that was for naught. Chiefs had to lose the ball there at the second quarter. And then, of course, they didn't get anywhere to start the third quarter. Game was over.
It was over. And the score 40-22, in my mind, it really was a 40-6 game, because those were garbage time touchdowns. And, but Vegas loves a bigger score for sure. But what I was most surprised at, David, is coming out of the half, I felt like, and obviously Patrick Mahomes, DeAndre Hopkins, you name it, Xavier Worthy was the only one who had a great game. I expected more from Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo coming out of the half. They are like, when you go into the half trailing the Patriots, the Bill Belichick, Tom Brady Patriots, coming out, I got to be armed and dangerous, because they've just made some major adjustments. I didn't see any adjustments. They were still passing like crazy. They did a little bit more running. I was surprised by that.
Yeah, they led off with a Pacheco run, but they could never get any momentum running the ball. I guess it just all comes back to the fact that the Eagles dominated both lines of scrimmage.
Yes.
Mahomes was under pressure all day long with a 4-man rush, and then the Chiefs really didn't have the ability to run the ball at all. The Eagles were just dominant up front.
Here's my question to myself at the end of the game. I was like, wait, I recognize that guy. Who's that? Kenny Pickett. What? When was the last time you saw a backup quarterback in victory formation at the end of a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
I can't.
It was that one-sided.
Whoa.
Years back when I was growing up, it felt like all these Super Bowls were very one-sided. There were never any good games. And the mantra back then was, the championship games are always better than the Super Bowl games. But the last few years, we've had some pretty good games, close games. We've had some overtime games. But
yeah,
this felt like one of those old school games. I remember going to a Super Bowl in New Orleans 30 plus years ago, and it was the 49ers.
When you were 5?
Yeah, I was 5 years old. It was the 49ers and John Elway's Broncos, and it was a rout. It was over by halftime. And, of course, the Broncos lost another one when Doug Williams led the Redskins
to
35
in
points in the
88.
second quarter. There's all these one-sided games for so many years. this game yesterday felt just like those old school games.
Well, I think the time was coming because I've said this season to you, man, Kansas City just keeps pulling rabbits out of the
Yeah.
hat. And someday they're going to run out of rabbits. Well, that day was yesterday.
There were no bunnies.
There were they're not even bunnies.
Yeah.
There was nothing even similar. I mean, I looked at the halftime and I said, the halftime stats, I thought, well, at the half, Philly has 24 points. Kansas City has 23 yards. Holy mother.
Holy mother. We'll let that be your last words. All right. In just a minute, we're going to be joined by Joel Blank. He, of course, is a radio host here on KFNC 92.5 and 97.5. And we will ask him about the big game yesterday and then shift the dialogue to a little bit of the NBA. It's been a week since the big trade. And Joel knows the NBA better than anybody in the city. So that'll be up next here. Joel Blank when we return here on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
You're listening to The Boss
and The Gloss
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Presented by Tony's. Tony's Restaurant, the city's top fine dining experience.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's David Gow.
And Carla Dawson.
Welcome back, and we are excited to be joined by the mighty Joel Blank. Joel, welcome to the show. You're on with David and Carla.
Always great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me on.
So we do want to ask you and pepper you with NBA questions, but before we do, I'm sure you were surprised at how one-sided the game was, but did you see the Chiefs winning this game, or were you picking the Eagles?
I thought I picked the Chiefs to win the game.
Yeah, I did too.
That, the fact that you talk about a team that lost the Super Bowl 2 years ago, then went through two different coordinators, and the Eagles, you didn't know what you were going to get, though you knew they had the most talented roster in the league. You look at Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, Patrick Mahomes. You trust that they're battle tested in the most high level, high stress situations, including when they had to come back and beat the Eagles. To where if I was to put my money down, I would say I'll take the Chiefs against just about anybody with that scenario.
Yeah, I can't blame you, Joel. I mean, I think everybody thought that. Would you say at this point, Philadelphia is the best run organization in the NFL?
It's just, I was listening to you guys, and Carla, I think the answer to your victory formation is Nick Foles. But
yeah,
other than
that's
that,
true.
in that rare situation, I think when you look at it from an organizational standpoint, you look at the guys that don't have the football acumen, that own teams, kind of sometimes what we hear about Jim Crane with the Astros in Houston
Yep.
about, hey, it's like fantasy sports. And once I own the team, I can do whatever I want because anybody can do this. That's a death sentence. But Lurie's a guy that loves the game but doesn't love it enough to get he hires people and lets them do their job. And he's actually hired a guy that does his job better than anybody else in Howie Roseman. And I think that combination has led you to capitalizing on the Giants, not knowing the right move to make with Saquon, and then having to bite him in their own division. And locking up the guys that they did on the offensive line that have made such a difference. It's hard to argue that they don't have the best front office in all of football right now.
Yeah, I agree, Joel. And your comments about Jeffrey Lurie, I don't think he gets enough credit because he went rogue a little bit when he tried the Chip Kelly experiment, and he brought Howie Roseman back. I mean, I was like, yeah, cut your losses. That was a great move.
You look at Jerry Jones, who owning isn't good enough. He has to be the general manager. Sorry, David, I know that's your squad, but I think he would be better suited to have a real general manager. You look at Dan Snyder back in the day,
Oof.
who would let his scouting department do all this work and then walk in on draft day and go, I don't care who you guys think we should take. We're taking, and it was the quarterback from Ohio State that absolutely was terrible. And you're like, that can set your franchise back a decade.
Yeah, so true.
We're talking with Joel Blank. So, Joel, we did want to pepper you with NBA questions. It's a week after the big trade where Luka and Anthony Davis switched teams. What do we know more about that trade a week later? I mean, a week ago, everyone called it the worst trade in history. The Mavericks were idiots. Where do we sit today on that trade?
I just think the Mavericks were idiots. And I think that, we just got done talking about ownership. At least from Mark Cuban's standpoint, he knew the game of basketball and he was dialed in on a daily basis. And he understood from a business perspective, when you have a 25-year-old franchise player that even if you want to say that he was overweight and he carried his team to the Western Conference Finals when his running mate, Kyrie Irving, couldn't make a shot to save his life and hit big shot after big shot multiple years to take you where the franchise hadn't been in a long time. And to pull the plug on that, it shows you that the new ownership, who now clearly with their comments didn't know anything about basketball, and all they could think about was, I don't want to pay a supermax extra $117 million for any player, so I'm going to pull the plug and take a guy that's 7 years older that may or may not have about 3 or 4 more good years left in him, and take my chances that I can win another one quickly, as opposed to from a revenue generating standpoint, from a popularity standpoint, from probably a team success standpoint. Luka Doncic for the next decade was going to carry you at least to where he had done before. And if he loses weight or matures a little mentally, he could probably do more.
Joel, do you think with Nico Harrison, the general manager who did this trade, I mean, he's only been with the Mavericks since 21, I think. And so he really wasn't there in their dire days. I mean, he didn't see really what the franchise has gone through. He's been here only, during the Luka time, basically. And he's known as a risk taker with things that he's done, like bringing in Kyrie, which I thought was nuts. And that actually did work out. Do you think Nico is a risk taker or a fool? Based on what we've just talked about.
You go back to when he was at Nike. They got this guy from Nike, and they said, well, he's got great player relations. But
oh, my.
What does that mean? He screwed up the Steph Curry deal because he didn't know how to put a PowerPoint presentation together. When Steph was considering staying with Nike, he goes to Under Armour, and we know the rest of that deal. He let Porzingis walk for a song. He let guys walk out of Dallas over and over again and didn't get nearly the return that he should have. And then he gets the biggest piece to whatever puzzle any NBA team would like to put together these days. And he lets him walk away because the owner's going to let him do what evidently he wants to do. And he feels like this is a better move for the franchise. It makes zero sense. And no one should have death threats over sports, and no one should need security.
Right.
But no one should have their job for a long period of time if their track record states there's more failures than there are successes. And right now, that's what you're looking at from the Mavs. And if you're the fan base, you have every right to be aggravated because you don't know, and we maybe will never know what's going on behind the scenes. But we know that on the court, if you needed a big shot, if you needed any shot, if you needed a guy to carry you, Luka Doncic was that guy.
And we're 7 months removed from them being in the NBA finals. It wasn't like they fell short. I mean, they did fall short in the finals, but they got there, and that's hard to do, as you know. Oh my gosh.
I mean, you look at it, guys. The other scenario that you can paint is James Harden, and I know from personal experience, James Harden was not an angel, and he was tough to deal with.
Yeah.
And he had attitude, and he had ego, and he did a lot of things that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But when you're an MVP caliber player, you can let a lot of things slide because what you benefit on the floor, and because you're winning games along the process. So you're selling tickets and selling merchandise, selling his jerseys. A lot of ownerships and front offices understand that from a business perspective, he might not be the greatest dude in the world to deal with, but he's making me a lot of money and we're having a lot of success because of him. So you're willing to kind of look past some things. And Dallas evidently got to a point where they weren't. And I think that from a financial standpoint, they're going to pay for this as well.
We are talking to Joel Blank. Okay, Joel, after we finished our show last week, Jimmy Butler landed with the Warriors. What kind of addition do you think he is to that team, and can they make a run this year with Jimmy Butler?
I really don't, David. I think that, look, I think he's better than what they've had. I think that Wiggins he's not a superstar caliber player, though he was rewarded like it was payment. I think Jimmy Butler can add, like Steph said the other night. Steph's a perimeter guy. Jimmy's more of an inside the 3-point line guy, and that helps them. But Draymond's not the same Draymond. The pieces around them aren't what they had when the Warriors were really good. And I think it's more of a desperate move for the next. And look, rightfully so, I think they understand that they owe it to Steph to do whatever they can to try and stay relevant. This maybe helps them stay relevant, but I don't think it gets them any closer to a championship because the West is loaded and you've got young, dynamic teams like OKC in Minnesota. You've got an experienced championship team in Denver. You've got, all these teams in the West that are capable of doing more than the Warriors, no matter what Jimmy Butler brings to the table. They're deeper, they're younger, they're more versatile. That I think that this was done to try and, appease Steph trying to go for it. But I don't think even Steph has what he used to have in the tank. And I think that the Warriors are just kind of a team that gets in and then goes away.
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of stuck between the developing rising stars and the aging veterans, and Jimmy Butler, is kind of in the middle there. I want to ask you, Joel, about Kevin Durant. Like, obviously, I'm a Cradle Warriors fan. I loved KD when he came, didn't love how he exited. I was willing when I heard like rumors that he might be coming, that the Warriors were trying to get him. And then he says, no way, I don't want to come. And he called Steph and he said, this isn't the time. Like this isn't good for me. And KD's full of drama. I mean, I love him on the court, but good Lord. Do you think his unwillingness to go to Golden State, was it because he was just shocked that he was even being talked about on the trade block in Phoenix? Or was it really his ego, knowing that no matter what he did, even with 2 finals MVPs in Golden State, it's never going to be his team with Steph Curry there? What do you think?
Carla, I think it's really tied to the fact that Kevin Durant, from his burner accounts to his overly sensitive self, to the realization that maybe someday he understands that he left a team that was up 3-1 in a series and joined a team that they were up 3-1 in a series on, and just the dynamic and the overall look of that was horrible, in the fact that if you can't beat them, join them. And then, a team that's already stacked gets even more stacked. And then he didn't like the fact that he never got full credit for those titles. And he was never, even to his own admission, he wanted to be the kind of guy that Steph was, getting all the credit. But Steph stayed there through thick and thin and was there for the long haul. KD did it just to do what he did and won titles. And so now the sensitivity level and the ego says, well, they blamed me, and I didn't get as much credit as I deserved the first time. Why would I go back? Well, everywhere you've been since, you've tried to create a super team, and it's fallen flat on its face. In order to kind of save face, you could have gone back and tried to rewrite the wrongs, because now, different scenario, different time. Warriors aren't a dynasty team anymore. They're not winning 70 games a year. They're not the kind of team that they were looked at the first time you joined them. And you could actually be a savior if you could take them to another level or maybe take them further than they were headed without you. But instead, now you're going to turn the other cheek because you're bitter. And yet they gave you your only titles of your career. So I thought it was, I guess, another example of a self-centered, selfish, egotistical Kevin Durant, not realizing this was actually a possibility to rewrite your time in the Bay Area, and this time be the hero that you thought you should have been the first time around by doing what you do best, which is just, be a centerpiece, a scoring machine, and have guys around you that can help you.
Yeah, that's a great point.
We're talking with Joel Blank. Now, talking about trades that did not happen, Kevin Durant being one. The Lakers tried to acquire big man Mark Williams from Charlotte. That trade fell through. He didn't pass the physical. What does that mean for the Lakers now? They don't have the big man, and then they have players who were on the cusp of being sent out who are now still on the team, like a Cam Reddish.
This is, David, this is kind of ode to when Sean Elliott was supposed to be a Rocket and Matt Billard and Robert Horry were supposed to be Detroit Pistons, and then the trade got rescinded.
Yes.
There's an ego involved. There's feelings involved, and
Sure.
I know Robert and Matt Billard well enough and long enough for them to have told me stories about how hard it was to come back. And I think so. You take the human element, and that's a huge factor. But now you talk about the Lakers, who were trying to get a big man even before they traded Anthony Davis. And now you add two guys that can still control and impact the game to the level of LeBron and Luka, but you have to have size because size matters in the playoffs. And you lose the guy. Now you got to hope in the buyout market or some way you get kind of like a flyer on a guy that can help you with interior post rebounding and defense, even if they don't do anything for you offensively, as opposed to a really young, potentially good to up better than good center for the next 5 years that can help Luka. And Luka's always so good with, you look at what he did for Lively in Dallas.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a piece that they really could have capitalized on using that maybe takes them to the second round of the playoffs. Now they're going to be searching and in desperation mode to just try anybody in the buyout market or whoever becomes available to try and get some piece that can help them. And I think it's really going to set them back. I thought that if you had a piece like that, because they didn't give up as much as they were expecting to give up to get Luka, they saved their first. They saved, the connect to be able to get a big. They got the big. Now it goes away. And I think that this says more, too, from a competition committee and the league, that in the future, if something like this happens at the deadline, that maybe you have to create a 2-week window for the teams involved, depending on who's at fault.
To let the physicals play out. Yeah.
Because the Lakers did everything right.
Yeah.
And then we're left holding the bag because the deadline passed and the Hornets didn't do everything right and they're not going anywhere. So they don't care about the rest of the season. It's actually better for them because now they can continue to be bad and get the highest draft pick they can get. And I think that's tough.
All right. He's Joel Blank. Joel, really appreciate your joining us.
Yeah. Thank you, Joel.
Always
so
a pleasure,
it.
guys.
All right. When we come back, we're going to unpack the interview between Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes and other tidbits from the Super Bowl. That up next here on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
You're listening to The Boss
and the Gloss.
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Presented by Tony's. Tony's Restaurant, the city's top fine dining experience.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's David Gow.
And Carla Dawson.
So, Carla, here's my issue. Whenever that ad runs, go to Dr. Linvale, go to 975hair.com. You always look over at me like, hey, you'd be a good candidate for that.
That is not true.
Little male pattern baldness, hair transplant work. I'm going to go see Dr. Linvale and see what he does for me. I need a little help up there.
I think you're looking at my hair saying the same thing.
Yeah, well, maybe not. All right, somebody who has great hair, Tom Brady, although there have been whispers in Boston for a long time that he's had a transplant or two
Okay.
or three along the way. But Tom Brady yesterday, he looked good. He did a pretty good job of announcing.
I thought it was his best. I thought he ended the season on a high note. I appreciated his coverage of the Super Bowl last night because that first call, that first OPI call against AJ Brown, I
Yes.
was like, oh, are we going to have one of these? And he was like, that should not be called right now. And then he called on Mike Pereira, who agreed and said the same thing. I was like, okay, thank you for saying the party line. And he did the same thing when there was a makeup call against the Chiefs 2 plays later or 2 series later. I thought I think he's starting to settle in.
All right. Well,
I
we
liked
hope
it better.
So. The one
liked
thing
it
we
better.
know about him is he will work at his trade. I mean,
Yes.
he's obviously a
He's
guy.
maniacal with
Remember when
preparation.
he was drafted, in the 6th round, and nobody counted on him to be an NFL quarterback, and he willed himself to be good. He may do the same in the broadcasting booth, although I don't know if he'll have the same level of passion and commitment. Time will tell. It's interesting because you sit there as a Raiders fan, and there is this question whether he can really be an announcer and managing
A very
front office,
influential
very
minority
influential with the Raiders.
owner.
It'll be an
Yeah.
ongoing debate. It'll be fun to watch unfold. But what I wanted to mention about Tom Brady yesterday was his pregame interview with Patrick Mahomes, which was an amazing thing because you had the GOAT with perhaps the next GOAT, Patrick Mahomes. There they were in a conversation.
Today I would say he's a sheep.
Well,
A little ewe
yeah,
somewhere.
the talk of Mahomes as a GOAT has faded today.
Today's face.
But it could well be back
Yes,
next year. Who
yes.
could say? But Brady sitting next to Mahomes, what was funny for me as I thought about it is Tom Brady said, look, we're at the place now, Patrick, where everybody hates your team. And, we used to talk about Patriot fatigue because they kept winning every year. And the stories going into the Super Bowl game, the Radio Row banter was always so repetitive. We were tired of hearing about Tom Brady
10
and Gronk.
appearances in the Super Bowl.
Unbelievable.
1-7.
And it got to the point where the fans would just root against the Patriots. They were just done. Nobody wanted to see them in the big game again. And Brady turned to Patrick and he said, recognize that's who you are now. Nobody wants you back in this game. Nobody's rooting for you. You're the enemy to all. And Patrick sort of smiled and acknowledged it. And of course, in the midst of that, there's Patrick Mahomes, who has not done anything wrong. He's not been caught in the wrong place with the wrong person,
Right.
driving home late at
He's
night.
a model
No
citizen.
drunken. He's a model citizen by all accounts. He's a stand-up good guy, good character guy. And yet the Chiefs have now gotten to that lofty place where they've been so successful that everybody hates them all of a sudden.
Well, this is what I say. In sports and really in life, people hate who they fear.
Hmm.
And the Patriots, I said they've been to 10 Super Bowls. Tom Brady's been to 10. The Patriots have been to 9. Tom Brady's been to 10, one with Tampa Bay. But I think that is exactly what it is. And it's like, because you're right. Patrick Mahomes has been a model citizen. He's been nothing but just unbelievable in a 7-year career to have gone to a Super Bowl 5 times and won 3 of them. Like, what? He is 29 years old. And Brady had the same situation in New England where he won so many times. People hate them not because of being a bad person, but it's what they're doing at such a high level that it's hard to beat them. And so that's where it comes from.
I mean,
It's a weird compliment.
it's a strange dynamic.
Yes, strange
Congratulations.
dynamic.
You've now become hated.
Yeah.
Just what you always wanted.
Right. It's like the pretty girl. People hate the pretty girl, not because she's mean or bitchy sometimes,
Sometimes people
but
like
it's because
the pretty
they're
girl.
pretty. But we love Abigail. Yes,
Abigail
no matter
behind the
what.
Glass over there.
Yeah.
She's the pretty girl, and everybody loves Abigail. If you are watching, you can see her on screen. Go to our website, ESPN975.com, and you can watch Abigail. And she's a pretty girl,
Yes, she is.
but we don't hate
Beautiful.
her.
Inside and out.
But I'll tell you what, I mean, Tom Brady, the most controversial thing he ever did, I guess, was Deflategate. Scandalous though it was, the ball's pressure was just a little bit off, and it does seem that he was party to that. But really, all of the off the field nonsense that we hear from so many players, and when you go back,
Spygate for New England as well. But
Spygate, but I don't know that that was Tom per se as director.
no, that's
Certainly
right. That's right.
that was a bit of a taint on the Patriots.
Yes.
But Tom Brady never really says anything that controversial or outrageous or opinionated. He's sort of right down the middle of the fairway. Deflategate being his one moment in the sun that wasn't so flattering. But for the most part, yes, he was hated for his success. And that's where we found both those players yesterday.
And what do you feel about the GOAT conversation? Like, do you think Mahomes, at this point today, sitting here, do you think it is too early to talk about him in the GOAT conversation with Tom Brady? Or do you think we'll get over the Super Bowl and go right back in there?
Well, I will say two things about that. One, it is too early to say he might supplant, or it would be too early to say that he is on track and will beat out Tom Brady as the GOAT. Tom Brady is the GOAT. Patrick Mahomes may well get there. Patrick Mahomes is on a great trajectory. Patrick Mahomes has extraordinary success at this early in his career. As we sit here on Monday after that debacle of a game, a really bad game for Patrick, a really bad game for the Chiefs, the mantra today was, oh my gosh, Patrick Mahomes will never be the GOAT. He's done. It's over. The spell is broken. I would not say that. It would not surprise me at all. In fact, Vegas has already picked the Chiefs to be the favorite to win the Super Bowl next year.
Yes, I saw that.
The overreaction today. I mean, I was watching a sports show this morning.
It better not be the one that we secretly talk about.
No, I don't talk about.
Okay,
I don't
good.
watch Get Up
Good.
anymore.
Good.
This was on your Fox Sports show, and they were talking about how the Eagles are poised. They are the ones with all the youth on their team to three-peat. And it's just too early to talk about a three-peat. They haven't even got number 2 yet.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes, it's too early to talk about him as the GOAT. It was too early coming into this game. That kind of hype, actually, I think is self-destructive for these teams.
Yes.
As you've noted, when they were talking three-peat after their number 2 win last year in the Super Bowl, I think that's just too much. I think a Nick Saban would say, take it one day at a time.
Absolutely.
Pick up your lunch pail, go to work, lift your weights, run your sprints, do your drills, practice hard, and don't think about outcomes. Think about the process to get there. And the outcomes,
I love that.
like the GOAT and three-peat, those sorts of things, players shouldn't even think about them at this
Well,
point.
that comes naturally when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing
Yeah.
or what you're capable of doing. I think it's interesting to note too, like at one point, the score of the game yesterday in the third quarter was 34-0. I don't ever remember Tom Brady being down 34-0.
Nope.
So that was notable to me.
Yep.
And then you look at Patrick Mahomes has led the Chiefs to 5 Super Bowls. So impressive. 29 years old. He's lost 2 of them by a margin of 40 points. 40. Tom Brady has lost 3 Super Bowls, so 1 more than Mahomes by a margin of 15.
Yes, that is a
15.
notable thing. That's right. That's a great comparison because we never saw the Patriots get beat up or Tom Brady have such a poor game the way
Right.
Patrick did yesterday.
It was a shocking performance yesterday, for sure.
All right, when we come back, we're going to get a chance to visit with Bob Nightingale of USA Today Sports. Of course, he is an authority on all things baseball. So with him, we will talk some baseball, and we're going to ask him, where will Alex Bregman land? That up next year on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
You're listening to The Boss
And the Gloss.
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Presented by Tony's. Tony's Restaurant, the city's top fine dining experience.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's David Gow.
And Carla Dawson.
Welcome back. And we've been talking a lot of football, a lot of NBA, but now we get to shift gears and talk a little baseball with one of the top authorities in all of sports, Bob Nightingale, joining us from USA Today Sports. Bob, welcome to the show. You're on with David and Carla.
Yeah, good. How about you guys? How you doing?
We're doing great. Really appreciate you joining us. You know, we're sitting here in Houston, Texas. Alex Bregman, one of the top free agents, former Astro, out on the marketplace. Where do you think Bregman will land?
Yeah, I still don't know. My gut tells me the Detroit Tigers, but the way hasn't signed there yet. I'm starting to get pessimistic on the Red Sox because I don't think they're going over 4 years for everything I hear. And then I don't think he's going back to the Astros. You know, when they made the move and traded away, you know, Ryan Press, I said okay because they had to clear some money, but not hearing any traction at all. I mean, you know, the Astros are very pessimistic on it too, and yeah, I'm not hearing much from the Astros at all. I don't know what actually happened there, but I think the Astros would be a real long shot at this point.
Do you see any similarities, Bob, between what's happening now with Bregman? Because the Astros have offered him 6 years, $156 million, and they don't usually do long deals. It was the same situation with Carlos Correa. They had actually offered him what he ended up taking in Minnesota. Do you see any similarities? And does that tell us anything about, what's going on in the front office in Houston? Why don't players want to go back to there?
Well, I think Korea, you know, misread the market. You know, he had of course, in left, you know, looked at originally like, okay, you go to $300 million from the Giants and, you know,
Yep.
more than $300 million from the Mets. And he kept plunking those physicals. So a little different thing there where he actually does get a lot of
True.
money. But I'm not sure what's happened with the Alex Bregman thing. I mean, I would think he'd want to stay there just because that's where his legacy is. I really believe he stays there by building a statue of him outside the stadium.
Right.
Where, you know, you go somewhere else, you know, and it's like, okay, what have you done for me lately? You haven't done anything because you're a new guy here. You know, and then I think, you know, there's no protection there. I mean, if he starts to struggle, you know, people bring up the 2017 scandal, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I don't know why the disconnect there, because I think in the end, you know, what the Astros originally offered, I don't know if that offer's on the table. It wasn't. Not that they can't put it right back on. You know, it's going to wind up to be pretty close to what he receives.
Yeah, and do you think the Houston's offer that once was and maybe can come back if Bregman will take it, 6 years, $156 million, do you think that's a fair offer, or is Houston trying to bargain him out
Well, it
a
looks
little
like the
bit?
fair offer now because no one's, you know,
Yeah.
no one's topping it. You know, if someone
Yeah.
comes in at 7 years, you know, if the Astros came up at 7 years at the same 26 a year, I think he would do it. You know, he's been very adamant, you know, him and his agent, Scott Boras, that they don't want a short-term contract. You know, the Cubs are willing to do that, you know, like a 3-year deal at,
Yeah.
you know, probably, you know, quote 85 to 90, you know, with an opt-out, but he still wants that long-term contract. And I don't think the Cubs will go to 6 or 7 years. I really don't.
We're talking to Bob Nightingale of USA Today Sports. So sitting here in Houston, the Astros have lost some familiar names. I mean, Bregman is gone. Ryan Presley is gone.
Kyle
Kyle
Tucker.
Tucker, Justin Verlander. From the outside in, tell us what you think of the Astros prospects this coming season.
Well, I love the move getting Christian Walker. I thought that was one of the best moves by any team in the offseason. And he's a 3-time Gold Glove winner, solid hitter. You know, he's going to, you know, hit you, 25 home runs or so, you know, maybe, you know, over 30. Unbelievable clubhouse leader. So I thought that was a fabulous move. And then we'll see about, you know, third base. He's a pull hitter, so I think he'll hit, you know, 30, 35 home runs. We'll see about that. You know, it's kind of funny that the Cubs gave up on him so quickly. So, you know, some red flags there. You know, we'll see what happens. But, you know, they're going to have their pitching staff back.
should be healthy and everything else. So I still think they're going to be the team to beat in the division. If they get Bregman back, there's no doubt that the team to beat in the division.
And do you think really we'll see Lance McCullers for a season?
Yeah, I hope so.
Gosh.
Such a good guy. It's been 2 years now,
Yeah.
and remember his dominant performance in the playoffs. Throwing curveball after curveball and stuff. So yeah, I really like to see him back. It's been such a long road,
Man.
and hopefully sometime second half.
We are talking to Bob Nightingale. So I want to shift gears and ask you about the Dodgers. I just keep wondering, how many starters do they need? I mean, this
Oh
team
my
is
Lord.
so
It's an
deep
embarrassment
in
of riches.
pitching. It's an embarrassment of riches. Have you seen a team with this kind of depth in starting pitching and win? I mean, this is a really, to me, almost an historic pool of talent.
I agree. It might be the deepest. You're right. Talent starting rotation in baseball history. I mean, even those. When you look at the Atlanta years, when they had Maddox and Glavine and Smoltz, 3 future Hall of Famers, but then there was always a drop off, the 4th and 5th guys. And you're right. The Dodgers right now have 8 starters, and I'm going to sign Clayton Kershaw here
I know.
in the next few days. I'll give them 9 starters. And I mean, those guys don't have to pitch, buddy. 6-man rotation. Just give you 5, 6 innings, or maybe 4 or 5 innings, and go from there. The scary part of the Dodgers is they won the World Series last year with only 3 starters in the postseason. Now they got 3 times that many.
And I hear Shohei's, is starting to throw. And do you think we're going to see him this season?
Yeah, I think the game plan is to see him in May.
My
So
gosh.
I think they'll be careful with him. Even the Sasaki, the
Right.
young 23-year-old. I don't see either guy pitching over 130 or 104 innings. I just think they be careful with all those guys. They don't have to push them. If someone has just a little bit of pain, hey, we'll put you on the injury list. Because we'll bring some other guys up. So no, I don't think we'll see anybody throw over 150 innings. I think they'll just be very cautious with all of them.
Yeah, and they have the luxury to do so because the numbers are on their side. Bob, let me ask you this. So David and I were just talking in the previous segment. The people, they hate who they fear, i.e. the Patriots dynasty, the Bulls dynasty, whatever, and here are the Dodgers. People hate them because they're just so good and they have so many stars. But I have to credit Andrew Friedman. I've got to believe this is him, who's bringing in guys that are so lovable. Shohei, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. I mean, obviously incredible from a talent perspective. But as a PR move, I am one that I don't want to like the Dodgers, but I can't help to root for these guys because they are just, and I'm sitting here in Houston. They're fantastic guys. Do you think that is a intentional move by LA, or just the personality came with the talent?
I think just personal talent. I mean, Freddie Freeman was beloved in Atlanta. It wasn't like he just became a good guy. Mookie, same thing. And anybody could have had these guys. I mean, anybody could have traded for Mookie Betts, and they didn't. Freddie Freeman just had for $160 million. I mean, Atlanta could have kept him.
Yeah.
Other teams could have jumped in and got him. The thing that's impressive about the Dodgers is that, they're always drafting, last or next to last, every year, and they're still getting great players. So they're drafting great. They're developing better than anybody else. So they have a great system working there. It's not just the money part. It's it's everything that goes with it. These guys are getting stars. They're drafting, the 29th or 30th pick or the 40th pick, where these other teams are drafting first or second, not getting near the same guy. Hey, they have more pro scouts than anybody else. That pays dividends. Them and Philly and Yankees, Tampa have a ton of pro scouts, and other teams aren't doing that. But yeah, I mean, just they do things right there. But when people talk about a dynasty and stuff, we see all the talent. But remember, they should have gotten beat by the San Diego Padres last year in the first round. Padres were up 2-1 and just stopped hitting. Their ace, Dylan Cease got hit hard twice there. But they had them on the ropes. So, once they got past the Padres, it was clear sailing. But it's not like they just dominating like the Yankees did there in the late 90s.
All right, he's Bob Nightingale. Bob, one more question before we lose you. Vlad Guerrero, he's 26 years old, I think. He's got a year
Amazing.
left with the Blue Jays. Is he going to stay there, or is he going to hit the market? I mean, he would command a really good price. What's the prospects for him?
I'd be shocked if he doesn't stay. I think he, wants over $400 million because you saw what Soto got
Oh,
and everything
gosh.
else for being the one-dimensional guy.
Yep.
I think he stays because the front office and people there are upset in Toronto. Last year, the contract for both the president and the GM, and Vlad is very popular there. I think they have no choice but to bring him back and sign him. I think if they don't and lose him, then people are going to be calling for a lot of different heads there.
All right, you heard it from Bob Nightingale of USA Today Sports. Bob, thanks so much for joining us.
Sure, my pleasure. Take care.
All right, when we come back, we're going to look at Carla's list of winners and losers from the big game yesterday. That up next here on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5. Welcome back. And now we dive into what everybody's been waiting to hear. Carla Dawson's
I'm sure
list
they're
of
on pins and
winners
needles.
and losers of the Super Bowl. Now, some of these are obvious, but I'm going to let you illumine them a little bit. And then some of them are not obvious to your list of winners and losers. I looked at a couple of them and I had my head scratching, wondering why that. So you'll
Well,
have
good.
to.
No, you go through them and you get to tell me what you think and if you think they're winners or losers
Okay,
too.
you start with winners. And of course, you've got the whole Eagles organization and Howie Roseman in particular, because he does get the credit for building this roster, and the roster is exceptional.
I mean, when you have a 22-year-old who turned 22 yesterday in Cooper DeJean, intercepting and pick six for 33 yards into the end zone. I mean, who thought a 22-year-old cornerback taken in the second round from Iowa, and let's say he is a white kid, is going to be a star in the Super Bowl? And look, he's been a star all season. Honestly, he's been incredible. And I also credit Howie Roseman too for, Nick Sirianni hasn't had the easiest path in Philadelphia, yet he's been to the Super Bowl twice in 3 years. And Howie Roseman was the one that said, Nick, I'm getting you an OC and I'm getting you a DC. You're going to be the CEO because that's not your forte. You need to focus on the locker room and this. And Nick Sirianni respected it, and now look where he is.
Well, and that would have
So,
been a hard pill for a lot of head coaches to
of
swallow.
course,
But with coming from Howie Roseman, maybe that he had the credibility there to make that a reality. And then when you talk about the corners, I mean, Cooper DeJean was great. He got the pick 6. They also drafted a cornerback in the first round, Quinion Mitchell, the 22nd pick.
Yeah.
And those two were exceptional. Of course, Mitchell finished second in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting. So they got 2 corners
and
in that
DeJean
draft,
fourth,
and that was impressive.
finished 4th. Yeah,
That's right.
you're so
Okay.
right.
So they're winners. You've got Jalen Hurts as a winner.
Yeah,
Look,
easy.
he's the MVP. No argument there. Let me go down for a few others. Here's the book, Inner Excellence, author Jim Murphy. And you're saying that book, Jim Murphy, the author, they're winners. Why?
They're now number 1 on Amazon as the best-selling book. Ever since a couple games ago in the playoffs when AJ Brown was frustrated and pulled out the book, it shot to number 1 on Amazon. So Jim Murphy is a winner, and so is Inner Excellence. So there
Okay.
we go.
You've got the 2 coaches, Nick Sirianni and Vic Fangio, both of whom deserve a lot of credit for that championship.
So Nick Sirianni, 2 Super Bowls in 3 years, and he's been through a heck of a lot. And I was worried when he shaved his head, pulled the Britney Spears and shaved his head.
Mm,
But that turned the franchise around. They had a bye week, and then they were 2-2 going into the bye week in week 5, and they came out and have reeled off 16 wins in 17 games.
You've got a
That's
history
a
of being
winner.
concerned about new haircuts.
I do.
But this time it worked out. You
I
had
do.
Justin Herbert one time.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, it was
Joe Burrows.
Joe Burrow.
Oh my
Yep,
goodness.
Justin
These
Herbert.
haircuts,
You're
You
right.
think they just get them off track, but this one worked out. Thank
And I
goodness
do
for
have
them.
to notice that Travis Kelce got a haircut. Never should have done that before the big
Mm,
game.
That
Did
was-
not consult the gloss. I'm just saying. And Vic Fangio, he was 0-8 versus Patrick Mahomes in all of his different roles around the NFL until last night. And I think this meant more to him. The love that he has from guys around the league. He said, I feel like so many people were pulling for me. So he's a big winner from last night.
Well, and
Huge.
coming to the game, Vic Fangio, for all of his success as a defensive coordinator, was not getting as much love and attention as Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator
Oh
of the
my
Chiefs.
gosh. Spags. That's all anyone was talking about this week. And rightfully so. He's a great guy, but don't sleep on Fangio. And he let you know it last night.
Okay, I'm going to couple these two. The O-line for the Eagles and the defense
Oh
of the
my
Eagles.
gosh. I mean, speaks for itself. You said earlier in the show, which was so accurate, this game was all about the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And the Eagles won it. So there we go.
Okay, here's another winner. It's a little backward, but I get why you're headed this way. Tom Brady was a winner yesterday. Explain.
Because now the GOAT conversation of Patrick Mahomes surpassing Tom Brady, it's done for now. It's done for this year. I mean, as we alluded to in an earlier segment, Mahomes at the age of 29, he's been to 5 Super Bowls, lost 2 by a margin of 40. Brady has been to 10 Super Bowls, lost 3 by a margin of 15. So the GOAT conversation is closed for now. Tom Brady can just stand alone on Mount
Phew.
Everest at the moment.
Tom can relax.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to the loser side of the ledger. Now, clearly the Chiefs are losers. You've got them on your list. Easy to acknowledge they are big losers
Because
today.
they lost the game.
They
Yeah.
not only lost, they lost big time. They embarrassed
Yeah.
themselves. This will be,
They were bludgeoned.
there were some wounds that are going to take some time to heal there.
Yeah, I think so.
Here's a loser, a team on your list, listed as a loser, the New York Giants. Now, why are the Giants losers in yesterday's Super Bowl?
Because we're not at the Philadelphia is not in this Super Bowl if not for Saquon Barkley.
Mm,
Where
yes.
did Saquon Barkley come from? The famous Hard Knocks where you've got Joe Schoen thinking he's all that in a bag of chips and saying, "Oh, we're just say Saquon, this is Joe here. We're just we think it's probably a good idea you go and test the market." You know what I'm saying? And he's like, "Wait, what?" And then John Mara, the owner, says, "Yeah, just don't go to Philly."
Oops.
Okay. So thank you, New York Giants. And you are not only losers because you got the second pick in the draft, but you also what do you think? I think that's self-explanatory now that I've laid that out,
Yes,
don't you
they
think?
were watching Saquon, their player, whom they drafted, whom they had excel for the Eagles. And really, Saquon, as much as anybody, deserves a ton of credit. He was not the MVP yesterday, but he was the primary offensive carrier for that team. I mean, there were certainly stretches during the season when Saquon played at a more valuable role than, say, even Jalen Hurts. I mean, that was a run team for a good part of that second half of the season.
Well, it allowed Jalen Hurts to develop other parts of his game on a more regular basis because you had some. I mean, he broke the NFL all season rushing record for over 2,500 yards. He had almost 500 yards in the playoffs alone. And yesterday, I think he had 54 yards on the day, but it didn't matter because he caught a key pass, a beautiful long pass that he almost bobbled but hung on to it. He was blocking like a machine. I mean, he did what he needed to do. And the Giants, I'm sure they are licking their wounds. They didn't even trade him. They just let him go be a free agent. This is why the Giants are the Giants. I'm sorry. Jeez, oh.
Well, notably, Hurts and Barkley are a great 1-2 punch. And it was clear yesterday the Chiefs had a lot of men up in the box to stop Barkley from the run. But all that did was open up A.J. Brown to one-on-one coverage or Devontae Smith to one-on-one coverage. And goodness, it's hard to cover A.J. Brown one-on-one for a whole game. And that's what they were asking the Chief corners to do so that they could cover up Saquon on the run. And so Saquon opened up that passing game. It
Yes,
was
he
an
did.
amazing 1-2 punch. And they even have the 1-2 punch on the run because they've got the read option where it could go to Saquon or Jalen can keep it himself on the run. So
Which he did several times yesterday. He
It's
had
a-
77 yards.
Saquon was valuable both to the running game and to the passing game for the Eagles yesterday. Okay. Here's another loser. He had nothing to do with the Super Bowl, but you've got his name on this list as a loser from yesterday. Drake, the rap artist.
I mean, so Drake and Kendrick Lamar have had an ongoing feud, really started in 2013. But it really escalated this year. And Kendrick Lamar took the public diss from Drake and turned it into Billboard's #1 record in Not Like Us. And he then released an album based around that song, ended up winning Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Album of the Year, swept the Grammys in all 5 categories. And yesterday, not only that, became Kendrick Lamar's first solo rap artist to headline the Super Bowl. And so then it gets even better,
Kendrick
David.
wins. Yes.
So Kendrick not only wins, he's in Drake's face everywhere he goes. He's at the Grammys sweeping it. He's on the biggest stage for a performer in the Super Bowl. And then yesterday, did you see the cameo in the Super Bowl with Serena Williams?
Yes. Tell us why Serena was significant.
Okay, so Serena's significant. I thought, oh, she's a Compton girl, and she shows ashes to the rising phoenix, what she's done. She was dating Drake at some point.
Oops.
And also Drake went after her husband, Alexis Ohanian, in a song as well. So she was there against Drake. And then SZA, who was the other performer with Kendrick Lamar yesterday, she dated Drake at some point in her career as well. Now, she and Kendrick have collaborated on several songs together, but he was dating her when she had just turned 18 and he was in his 20s.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
So much drama.
So Drake loses. I mean, it's like, don't mess with Kendrick. That's all I'm telling you. Whoa, man. He
Now,
took
Pete,
that.
Pete Diddy doesn't fit into any of this nonsense, does he?
Look at you, David. I'm so impressed with the pop culture references.
I know very little. I know just enough to throw his name into the mix.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, I've got
I'm
one
sorry.
last loser on your list. It's Travis Kelce's suit.
I'm still
Is-
not over Pete.
Well, your P. Diddy got you, didn't he?
Yes.
Why?
I'm
Have you
sorry.
been to one of P. Diddy's parties? Is that why?
Okay, I'm sorry. Focus.
Okay, since you can't talk about Travis Kelce's outfit, I will. If anyone hasn't seen what Travis Kelce wore
Oh
when he
my
showed up at the big game,
Gosh.
what's amazing to me is it's the goofiest outfit. It's got bell-bottom pants, all these bells and whistles. His shirt is halfway down, unbuttoned to
It's
his
like
belly
Uncle
button.
Rico from Napoleon Dynamite.
Thank you. And the
I love that
colors.
movie. That's so funny.
Wait a minute, Abigail. You like the suit from Travis Kelce?
No, I mean, At least he wasn't wearing green.
Thank you, Abigail. Who needs a suit consultation? Who wore
Right?
green last night?
All right, Patrick Mahomes wore green. He's been noted. Some have called him Kermit the Frog, right? And then he
That
wore the green
alone.
outfit.
And-
that alone was reason not to wear the
And
green.
what color was the opponent last night? Green.
He wore
I don't think he
Eagles.
was thinking whenever he put it on.
No.
Well,
Definitely not.
sometimes you think, oh, they're not thinking. But these outfits are so over the top, so outrageous that they clearly have given a lot of thought to it. Or maybe Taylor told Travis what to wear, because that outfit did not look like a football player's outfit. It looked like some kind of pop star type outfit. Travis Kelce's outfit, walking in, knowing that all of the media would be filming him, and to show up in that outfit, you couldn't catch me dead in that outfit.
No.
You couldn't catch me alone in my home.
I wouldn't do the
in that
show
outfit.
with you if you came in that outfit.
You know what? I might wear it next week and see if you really stand by that statement. Abigail, you mark my words. I'm going to come in some kind of crazy
Game
outfit.
on, boss.
Travis
Okay,
Kelce
deal.
redo right here. Or Patrick Mahomes' green outfit, his Eagles green, Kermit the Frog look. Could I do that?
Sure, you can rock the green. I'll let you do that. No, Travis Kelce's outfit to me was screamed midlife crisis.
Well, he is, 35 years old.
Yeah, which is young.
He's in
He's
a very,
like our age.
he's in a very nice relationship with Taylor Swift. They've been dating a long time.
Yeah.
Do we have an over-under on when he's going to propose?
Well, I
Well,
was thinking
there
it
was
was
an
going to happen.
interview saying that one of the ladies that had said to Travis Kelce, like, "Are you gonna propose whenever y'all win the Super Bowl?" And Travis was like, "I don't know. Wouldn't you like to know?"
He's leaving it out there.
There we go.
I did think there was a possibility. I mean, this is out in social media, that if the Chiefs had won, that's always a fun moment. You celebrate with a big proposal. But
Like the Carlos Correa moment.
the
after-
Carlos
yeah.
Correa moment after the World Series, he proposed. But we didn't get to see that with Travis because, of course, the Chiefs were not in that game. And Travis had a very, very light game yesterday.
4 catches for 39 yards.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Not a productive day for Travis Kelce and the entire Chiefs offense. Okay. Thank you for your list of winners and losers, Carla.
You're so welcome. And thank you for making me laugh so hard with the P. Diddy comment. I
P.
love that.
Diddy.
I love laughing. It's so good for the soul.
All right. When we come back, the NFL offseason has now begun. And there are all kinds
my
of dramas
gosh.
unfolding, not the least of which is the fate of Aaron Rodgers. We will
Crazy.
unpack these questions, the NFL offseason questions, when we return here on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
You're listening to The Boss
And the Gloss.
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Presented by Tony's. Tony's Restaurant, the city's top fine dining experience.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's David Gow.
And Carla Dawson.
Welcome back. And with the Super Bowl behind us, the NFL offseason has officially begun.
My gosh, it's the league that never sleeps. I love it.
No, and it won't be long, really, before there are major headlines about major players. It's already really started with the New York Jets apparently informing Aaron Rodgers, who is now 41 years old, that the Jets will move on from Aaron Rodgers. Now, there are two really interesting elements there. One is, what are the Jets going to do at quarterback? They don't have anybody, and they have a top 10 pick, but they really look like there are only two good quarterbacks, and they're going to go in the top 3 to 5 picks. So the Jets would have to trade up, and it will be costly to trade up to get one of the two, Cam Ward or Shadir Sanders.
I think it's such a tricky situation, and I think that the whole Rodgers trade, what they gave up to bring him in, what they paid him, I mean, they're going to take a $49 million dead cap hit with a release or a trade because he has 1 year
just
remaining.
Devastating to this season. And the team has a lot of talent. So
Young talent, too.
Young talent, but you can't build around that young talent if you got a big cap hit like that. And then they've got to find a quarterback. You put all that together, Jets are taking a step back. It's going to be a tough moment here. They've got a new head coach, Aaron Glenn, who, of course, was the defensive coordinator there with the Detroit Lions. He's going to give them a fresh start, some new energy. They've got a new general manager, but they've got a long road back with the end of Aaron Rodgers. Now, Aaron Rodgers has not said so, but it does appear that he wants to play again. He said he's going to go off and think about it. He's not announcing he's retiring. And so he's going to be looking for a new team.
Is he going back into the darkness?
That's right. He'll go to what he goes into his darkness retreats.
Oh my
Isn't that
gosh,
what he does?
this is so exhausting. Yes, his Hiawatha or whatever is, I can't remember all the things that he does, but geez, who's going to pay for this? I mean, who wants to pay for a 41-year-old who is not a leader, who's coming off an Achilles tear and is not near as mobile as he was before, a 4-time MVP who has won Super Bowl a lot of years ago?
Well, it may well be that
Jeez.
they don't have to pay that much because I don't think the demand will be that high. And he's made a lot of money in his career. The three teams that kept popping up in my reading include the Cleveland Browns, who, of course,
Oh gosh.
have their own cap issues with Deshaun Watson.
Well, and then we're going to get to them next for trade requests. Someone wants out of Cleveland too.
The Tennessee Titans have been rumored as well.
They've got the number 1 pick.
They've
right?
got the number one overall pick, and it just isn't a fit. I mean, what you would like is Rodgers, if you believe in Rodgers, you'd like him to go to a team that has everything but a quarterback, that is poised to go to that final level, and you presume that Aaron Rodgers could take you over the top. Tennessee's a rebuild. They're number 1 pick overall for a reason. And then the Raiders have been mentioned as well. Raiders, they need a quarterback, but I know you wouldn't want Aaron Rodgers in a
No,
black and gold uniform.
no. I mean, black and silver.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm changing your colors here.
Yeah. No, that would be an absolute disaster. Because honestly, he's not the type of quarterback like the situation that Patrick Mahomes was drafted in, with Alex Smith being a very good quarterback at the Chiefs with good coaching in place.
A bridge quarterback.
A bridge quarterback. And Alex Smith was so happy to show Mahomes the ropes. I mean,
Yep.
Mahomes sat for really the entire season, played very sparingly at the end. Rodgers is not that guy. He's not interested in helping someone younger. He acted like he was on Hard Knocks, but is Zach Wilson a threat to anybody to help? Not even to my dog. So, but remember, he was not happy when Jordan Love was drafted and said, I'm not here to be your friend. This is a competition. So I worry about him going anywhere to help a young quarterback along. I don't think that's going to happen. So I don't know. I just think he is a tough personality to bring into a locker room or an organization.
Okay, the fourth team that has popped up, which
Oh.
might fit your criteria,
Okay.
the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, well, okay.
That's a team that's
Yep.
built to win, but doesn't really have a quarterback. Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, the quarterbacks last year. Russell Wilson appears to be on his way out. Justin Fields still needs a lot of development. Maybe Aaron Rodgers could be the bridge for Justin Fields to grow up in that Pittsburgh Steelers team.
I feel like it could be I'm envisioning the Mike Tomlin,
Mm.
Aaron Rodgers connection being like Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler.
Mhm.
Like, don't mess. Who's going to be the last one standing?
Who's the alpha male?
Yeah.
Who gets to be
Yep.
the loudest voice in the locker room?
But I like that. I really do like that. Would be my favorite of all
It's certainly a
those.
better fit than a team that's rebuilding like the Raiders or the
Yeah.
Titans. I mean, I can't tell what the Browns are doing, whether they're rebuilding or not. Because
I
we
don't
always
think the
thought,
Browns do know what they're
well,
doing.
I mean, we always thought Deshaun Watson was going to be a good quarterback there. They finally had found their quarterback. They had all kinds of other talent. But now where they sit, the best talent, the best player on that Browns roster, Myles Garrett, is saying he wants out. He's played there long enough. He does not see a big future with Cleveland. He's 29 years old. He's at the peak of his powers. He wants to be traded. And there are a whole lot of teams that would love to have Myles Garrett on their roster.
And, I think what Myles Garrett, how he has handled this has been really great because he's been with Cleveland since he was drafted. He's the previous defensive player of the year, 29 years old. He's young. He's healthy. He's unbelievable. And he said, I don't want to go from Cleveland to Canton. I want to be somewhere where an organization is going to be competitive and has a chance to go to a Super Bowl. And he's right. I mean, he's not getting younger, but Browns general manager, Andrew Berry, who I like, he has said, we're not moving him.
Well, I would say the exact same thing if I were the general manager of the Browns.
Is that to garner interest?
So, yeah, I would want to
more
drive
interest?
the price up. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or
the
price,
answer
yeah.
is I don't want to trade Myles Garrett, and he doesn't want to trade Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's an exceptional player, but of course, for a price, he would. And of course, the answer right now is no. But if
He said not even for 2 first-round picks.
well, recognizing that, acknowledging that, and maybe he wouldn't. But the Lions, somebody who feels like they're poised to win now, will probably come and offer a really healthy bounty. And I don't know if it's 2 first-round picks that moves the needle, but I think that's the neighborhood of what it will take. Because you go back to guys like Khalil Mack, who is a total stud defensive tackle. And
Still.
he got 2 first-round picks in the trade that was happened years ago with the Raiders going to the Bears. And I would think that Myles Garrett gets that kind of haul, and 2 first-round picks is quite valuable. Of course, it depends on where in the first round it goes. I would be less excited if I were trading Myles Garrett to the Lions because I think the next 2 years the Lions will be drafting late. I'd rather trade Myles Garrett to the Tennessee Titans with the presumption that I'm going to get 2 high first-round, very valuable first-round picks. It'll be really intriguing to see where he lands. But other big names that are looming on the trade market, Deebo Samuel,
Interesting.
the prolific wide receiver of the 49ers, he has said it's time he wants to go, and the 49ers have said they will explore trade opportunities for Deebo.
Yeah, it's interesting. Remember, this is his second trade request in 3 years.
Yeah.
The first time it was in light of contract negotiations.
He wanted more money.
And so guess what they did? They re-signed him in 2022. He's a star wide receiver, 3 years, $72 million. But this time, I think the 49ers have said, okay, because he's coming off the most disappointing season in his career so far. And they don't need a diva. There's a lot of wide receivers. This is a good wide receiver tight end draft. I mean, I think there will be a market for him for sure. I can imagine.
The Patriots are desperate for wideouts, and I think they would give up some kind of draft capital to get Deebo, even at the contract where he's signed, which is probably too much for his level of play today.
Yeah, well, San Francisco would have to take almost a $32 million dead cap charge with the trade.
That's tough to do.
Man, we're talking about this kind of money like it's, a regular conversation. This is painful.
Mm-hmm.
When Aaron Rodgers, now Deebo Samuel, it's like, oh my gosh.
Another big name who apparently is on the way out the door, Cooper Kupp, the longstanding wide receiver for the Rams. He too is going to be traded.
They said immediately.
The message was that it would happen immediately. Well, here we are. The big game is over. The NFL's offseason has started. I do think he'll be traded pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I think we were surprised by that. That happened at the end of our show last week. But the Rams, if you look at it, they have cap issues, they have aging stars, and they have an identity that's shifting. And he's a 32-year-old wide receiver who is still talented, still can run, great route runner, but he's had a lot of injuries. I think it's about money, it's about longevity, and it's about their long-term plans, and it's sad for Cooper Kupp that he's not part of it.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk to Tom Cable. He was the former head coach of your old team, the
Yes,
Raiders.
he was.
And he's currently coaching the Houston Roughnecks here in Houston. And we're going to talk to him about the Roughnecks and his outlook on offensive line play in the NFL and the dominance yesterday by that Eagles front line. That up next here, Tom Cable here on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
You're listening to The Boss
And the Gloss.
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Presented by Tony's. Tony's Restaurant, the city's top fine dining experience.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's David Gow.
And Carla Dawson.
Welcome back. And in this segment, we are joined by Tom Cable. He's the new run game coordinator for the Houston Roughnecks, who have their season upcoming here in the UFL. Tom, welcome to the show. You're on with David and Carla.
David, Carla, how are you?
We're doing great. Really appreciate you taking the time. So fill us in on all your season preparations for the Roughnecks.
For me, it started in December, and when Curtis Johnson and I first talked about it, it was like, yeah, let me think about it. And the more we talked, he and I have a great relationship that goes back 30 plus years, and sound like something that really interests me. Developing young players, trying to get a team that struggled a little bit last year, help them get on track, and help a friend doing it. So yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to get started.
And Tom, in a little over a month, your Houston Roughnecks of the UFL are going to kick off their season versus the St. Louis Battlehawks. Give us a preview. What are we to expect? What are we going to see? I'm excited.
Well, I think the first thing, in football at high level is building your roster. And so that's been kind of the process here, specifically the last 2 or 3 months with Will Lewis, the GM, and the other coaches and CJ. And so I think first thing you're going to see is a different roster for the most part than what they had a year ago. Certainly with the group I'm going to coach, the offensive line, a couple of familiar faces, but really by and large, it's a new group. And I wanted to get as big and as physical and as talented as we could find. And I think we've accomplished that. So you should see a physical style of football that's explosive, the ability to throw the ball deep and incorporate the quarterback into a run system.
That sounds great, Tom. I'm excited about this. And let me tell you, they're very lucky to have you. We're talking with Tom Cable, the run game coordinator for the Houston Roughnecks of the UFL, and former Super Bowl winning with Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks. Went to 2 trips to the Super Bowl, won 1. Talk about, Tom, you know Pete Carroll very well. He's now tapped as the new CEO, head coach in Las Vegas. Talk about how you think Pete Carroll is going to do with this franchise that's in a lot of disarray, but I love his energy. I love his youth. You know more than better than anybody. Give us a thought. What do you think is going to happen here with him, Pete at the helm?
Well, I think he's going to give it a facelift. I think first and foremost, Pete is a philosophy-driven coach. That was really he and I's connection. Is we knew what style of play needed to take place in order to play complementary football. And we were really good on defense. And of course, we had Marshawn Lynch in the backfield and a great O-line, and then Russell Wilson and a bunch of good receivers. So we were able to attack it. And when you can do that, play great defense and attack the other team offensively, something really cool happens, and we wind up, being world champions. So I think he's going to kind of reinvigorate the community in Las Vegas towards pro football. But I think more importantly, he's going to give that organization some organization, some leadership,
right.
Some real leadership. And, it's going to be a lot of hard work, but he's up for it. As you said, he's full of energy. And I think he'll bring a great philosophy and he'll bring great energy and transform that organization into what they hope it would be.
And some stability, since they have gone through 5 head coaches in the last 6 years. It's been just a disaster. So I love seeing him at the helm. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I do too.
We're talking to Tom Cable. He's the new run game coordinator for the Houston Roughnecks, whose season starts in about a month. Okay, yesterday, the Eagles seemingly dominated both sides of the line of scrimmage. They seem to win the line battle. And a lot of people have been talking about how big the offensive line is for the Eagles. Size matters, but also mobility matters. How do you think about building an offensive line? Because obviously there are a lot of teams that have been drafting smaller versions of offensive linemen than what the Eagles have been going out to get. Is the advantage all about size? How do you think about, and does it depend a bit on what kind of run game you want to run, whether it's a spread run or a power run? Walk us through the thinking about forming an offensive line.
Well, I think it really, when you break it down, David, it's more about your first part of the question. What is your philosophy about building an offensive line? For me, it's giants. And I don't know that you say, well, you get big for the power system or this, but I think that's all baloney. I think you get the biggest, best players you can that are long and good arm length. I'm talking about that are good, smart athletes and can create a lot of violence. And when you get that big size with those kind of attributes, then I don't really think the system matters what you do. And that's what I'm going to try and build for Houston, is a big physical offensive line that really not interested in small people. They don't fit for me.
No small people, I guess.
I love that motto. No small people.
Well, Carla, we're ruling you out. Sorry, Coach. Carla's not eligible for your offensive line.
Well, thank goodness.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
She doesn't want to fit that mold. Okay. Will you talk to us about, will you have RPO? Will you be spread runs? What do you envision doing with the run game?
Well, I think what we want to do is create a run system that makes you defend it from sideline to sideline. And so that's all those things you're talking about, David. The ability to line up and play power football, the ability to run the RPO game, to run the quarterback run system. I think all of those things, you have to have enough of each of those elements to have a good run game in modern football. I think if you go one with the other too far, this is what I think. If you try to be too much power run, then they just load the box on you. And if you try to be too spread, then I think you're soft, and I don't think you play physical football. So I think there's a balance that's needed so that you can do all those things, or enough of all those things, that you make your opponent have to defend all of it. And, back in the day, a long, long time ago, there is a thing called triple option football where the quarterback was involved. And I think that that's part of football nowadays, is playing 11-man football, meaning you make them account for the quarterback as a runner in some form or fashion. So to me, it's get as big and physical as you can, as smart as you can, but then have enough of all those types of different runs to make your system complete.
Tom, let me ask you this. So in the game last night, it was clearly the tale of two O-lines that were so vastly different. Based on all of your incredible experience and knowledge, including being a Super Bowl champion, was there anything that the Chiefs could have done schematically, or was it a personnel issue? Because clearly the Eagles, their average line, they average 6'6" and they average almost 340 pounds. They're absolutely massive, which speaks to your giant on the line. What about the Chiefs? These guys are not small. What was missing for them?
Well, I think this. You have arguably the greatest coach in pro football right now, in Andy Reid, and I have a lot of respect for Andy. I've coached against him too many times to even break it down. But he is phenomenal at putting his team in the right position to win. And so this wasn't about scheme, yesterday. This was literally about personnel. And if you look at the transition for the Chiefs, really about the last year and a half, they've kind of had some issues at tackle. I mean, they got Joe Thuney playing left tackle, who's one of the best guards in football,
right,
and you can't do that. And so it really did come down to Philadelphia just having better players on the defensive line than what Kansas City had on their offensive line. And, when you talk about, I thought Kansas City did a nice job of kind of containing Saquon Barkley. But to do that, as Dave mentioned, you got to load the box up, because that's the power run game. And so they threw the ball, and Jalen Hurts hurt him with some touchdown passes. And then he also was pretty good running himself. So it really came down to personnel, and Kansas City just didn't have enough monsters.
Yeah, and Jalen Hurts had his highest QBR last night, and he was the lead rusher. So you take away one weapon, and Philly hits you with another big time.
That's right.
That's why they're the champs today.
That's right. And that's the cool thing. When you're a world champion, you're that forever, and Philly did it. So congrats to them.
We are talking with Tom Cable. He is the new run game coordinator for the Houston Roughnecks. All right, one last question before we lose you. Based on your career, and you've had a long, great, storied career in the NFL, what offensive linemen, give me one or two names, have stood out to you as just the perfect prototype in your mind to play in the offensive line?
I think guys like Jonathan Ogden. I think Tony Baselli before he got hurt. A couple guys I coached, Jeremy Newberry, Max Unger. Some terrific players, Russell Okung. You look at guys in today's game. You think about Zach Martin of the Cowboys. He's arguably been the best guard in football, maybe, the last 5 to 10 years. So I think those are the kind of guys we all want to coach and develop. And if you get one, hold on to them, because they're special.
Yeah, they are. They're special and they're rare.
Indeed. Well, you've been special to us. I appreciate your joining us. He's Coach Tom Cable, new run game coordinator, and you can see the Houston Roughnecks in their debut in about 1 month. So we wish you all the best with a great season.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Okay, when we come back, we're going to unpack the notebook. We're going to look at all the things we've left off and have not been able to cover, including Kellen Moore going to become the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. he probably could have just stayed in New
Supposedly,
Orleans
yeah.
after the Super Bowl.
And maybe he did.
And maybe he did. I
No, he's
understand
gonna
he went back. He's
celebrate.
going to be part of that parade there in Philly on Valentine's Day. But we'll be up. We'll be right back. You're listening to ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
This is The Boss
And the Gloss.
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Presented by Tony's. Tony's Restaurant, the city's top fine dining experience.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's David Gow.
And Carla Dawson.
All right, Carla, we've got several topics we've got to hit before we conclude the show today. One I want to hit right out of the chute. Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator for the Eagles, went to New Orleans, got the Super Bowl ring. He probably could have just stayed in New Orleans because he's about to become the head coach of the Saints. Yet he went back to Philly. He's going to be part of the parade in that celebration, and why shouldn't he? But here he is. He will become the youngest head coach in the league, taking over the role with the Saints. And this has been a bit of an evolution here. Kellen Moore has been a good offensive coordinator.
You had him for a lot of years in Dallas.
Yeah, they put up very good numbers in his offensive system in Dallas with Dak Prescott and some of the talent there. Then he went to the Chargers and he was less successful as an OC. And he went to the Eagles And for much of this season, he was being criticized because the offensive numbers, the passing numbers specifically, were not at the level that everybody thought they should be. He was being criticized because A.J. Brown wasn't getting his catches. You heard that narrative most of the season. But now we sit here, it's the morning after a huge Super Bowl win. And I do give him some credit because I think what happened yesterday was, of course, the Eagles would love to have run the ball with Saquon, and they ran it adequately. But there was no big breakaway run. They didn't just hand the ball to him. They actually used Saquon to set up runs for Jalen and to throw the ball over the top deep to both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So they were able to use Saquon. A decoy is too strong a word, but as somebody
But
who
yes, that's very accurate.
and so I give Kellen credit for adjusting what he wanted to do based on what the Chiefs were doing defensively. So I give him a lot of credit. I think he did a masterful job as the OC yesterday, and the results bore that out. I do think it's still a question whether he can ascend to the head coaching role. To be the youngest head coach at the New Orleans Saints, I think it's a big leap. And we've seen lots of coordinators who excelled as coordinators, but were unable to take the big step to be a head coach.
Josh McDaniels
Josh McDaniels is the
ruined a
poster child of
franchise.
that.
Yeah.
But even guys like Wade Phillips was always an outstanding defensive coordinator wherever he went, but he never really excelled as a head coach. So this is the mystery to me. I have to give Kellen Moore full credit as an offensive coordinator, though, and what he did with that Eagles offense yesterday.
No, I agree with you because I think I've always been surprised in Dallas. I think obviously I'm a big Dak Prescott fan, and I think a 4th round pick to where he is now is just amazing. So I think, okay, I think he did a great job there, but not well enough to get them deep into any sort of playoff runs. And then you're right. His Chargers tenure wasn't great, but remember, Brandon Staley was the head coach. Brandon Staley, I think he looked for ways to keep that ball underwater. It was just unbelievable, and they hung on to him too long. So, different story for the Chargers if Jim Harbaugh had been there, I think, for Kellen Moore. Was surprised that he went to Philadelphia, but you know what I've realized? In the past several years, the Eagles have just won their Super Bowl, 2nd trip in 3 years. When Howie Roseman is in charge, and credit Jeffrey Lurie for allowing him to be, he really gets it right. And when it's not right, he gets rid of things quickly. I mean, this is Jalen Hurts' 4th coordinator in 4 years. I mean, and Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen, that combo only lasted a year because they went to the Super Bowl and then they were both hired as head coaches. So I really credit Howie Roseman for how quickly they move on from things. But wow, have I been impressed with Kellen Moore this year. And I think everything that you noted was so key because everyone yesterday, every player on the offense and defensive side of the ball did what they needed to do to win. Whether it was 2 catches from A.J. Brown, whether it was blocking and catching from Saquon Barkley. And I credit Kellen Moore just saying, this is what we need to do. This is what they're giving us. This is what we're going to do. But I'm nervous for him because I think the Saints are kind of in a mess. I mean, they've got Derek Carr, who has been up and down
Probably
all
at the
over
end
the
of
place.
his career at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go to one more football question, and then I want to get to the Super Bowl commercials. San Francisco, the 49ers, Brock Purdy is entering his final season
On the cheap.
on his rookie contract. They're about to pull up the Brinks truck. How much do they pay him? This is the dilemma, is that nearly every time the next quarterback gets up, he gets paid at the highest level in the league. And it's now sort of Purdy's turn. But when I look at Purdy, I don't see a Patrick Mahomes or a Jalen Hurts or even a Justin Herbert or some of these other guys who have that great arm talent, the ability to just take over games. And it's going to be hard. It would be hard for me to pay Purdy and give him a top 3 or top 5 contract in this league, because I think that's what it's going to take, or that's the expectation based on the history of quarterbacks when they come up for their big contracts.
No, I think that's very fair. I mean, it's because you look at Purdy and he has an embarrassment of riches around him. He has been to a Super Bowl. He was in a Super Bowl in overtime last year. And so I'm saying 2 different sides of it. It's like, what are we really seeing? Because he has so much incredible talent around him and great coaching, and he's been to a Super Bowl. But then we look at this year where the talent was on the roster, but it wasn't on the field due to injuries, and his production it fell off dramatically.
Christian McCaffrey makes every quarterback
Yep.
look so much better,
Yep.
and he was injured most of this year. Purdy's passer rating this season dropped 17 points, and I'm going to give
It's below 100 now, right? It's like 90
down to
something.
96.1. It's still very respectable, but it's a big drop, and I'm going to say a lot of it was due to the absence of Christian McCaffrey. All that said, I think it's hard to spend that much money on a guy who is better than a game manager, but I don't think an elite guy who can take over a game.
No, it's so true. And unfortunately for owners, this is what the NFL dictates. I mean, because currently right now, I think Dak Prescott is the highest
He's the
paid.
latest big guy to get his contract.
And Purdy can say, well, I've taken the team farther than Dak,
Yep.
More than once.
And he will.
And I think San Francisco's going to have to pay him. Wow.
Okay. Let me get to the Super Bowl ads. I
The
want to
fun
know.
stuff.
I'm going to tell you what my favorite is. And
Okay.
you can tell me
Yeah,
your
I want to
favorite.
hear.
My favorite was that throwback ad when they brought Meg Ryan back.
I knew it.
And the Harry Met Sally moment happened again. It was the Hellman's mayonnaise, and that just made everything happy, didn't it? I mean, if I had known that mayonnaise was that much of a winner, I might have gone out and bought some mayonnaise before.
Abigail, please help me here. I
What-
don't even know what to say.
What a great ad.
You need to describe the ad because I didn't watch the ads. I would always was just talk.
Oh, no,
I'm
she's just
going to let you
baiting
take
me.
that
She
over,
wants
boss.
me to describe the ad. You want me to describe what Meg Ryan did? It was the classic Harry Met Sally movie. They went back to the diner, and she faked another enjoyment.
Oh
moment.
my God.
Yes, she did.
First P. Diddy, now describing.
That's crazy.
It was just a little mayonnaise. That's all it took.
Abigail's too young to know when Harry met Sally.
Well, go back and watch the film. It's a classic.
Got it. Homework.
All right, Carla, what was your favorite ad yesterday?
Okay, my favorite ad was for the diehard sports fans that stayed tuned in when the game was over because it flipped to this ad. I didn't know what it was for. And it was, do you hate that you said he's not a top 10 QB and it flashed Jalen Hurts doing something? Do you hate that he always gets over when push comes to shove? They show the tush put. Do you hate that you're the one that he's the one that always says the right thing? And it flows to when he said after he signed his contract, money is nice, championships are better. Anyway, it carries on with Jalen Hurts and all these tracks, and it ends with love hurts.
Love Hurts.
And it turns out that Jalen Hurts is Nike's Jordan Brand. He's their spokesperson for the NFL for football. And it was a Philly inspired ad, and it was so cool. I'm not sure that ad, airs if Mahomes is the MVP or if the Chiefs will win, but it is a fantastic ad. I would run, don't walk to see it. You can Google it. It takes about 30
I bet
seconds.
there must have been two ads poised to run.
Yeah.
Depending on the outcome of the game, because you would not want to run that ad if, in fact, the Eagles had lost the game.
Well, and he's now, as I mentioned, the face of the Jordan Brand football division. He wore some throwback Jordan cleats, and he got fined for it for sure. He's not supposed to, but it was worth it. And the ad's awesome, especially given what he's been through.
Abigail, did you have a favorite ad?
I actually didn't watch any of the ads, low key. Like I would, whenever there was a break, I would just talk to my friends because we were all with my girlfriends.
That's fair, Abigail. You're young and fun. David and I are like watching commercials.
I will
That's
say,
trouble.
I enjoyed the ad when Tom Brady's body went limp
Oh yeah,
because
funny.
the battery in his arm had gone dead and he needed a Duracell battery to fire himself back up. And the reason why I sort of liked it is Tom Brady at times can seem almost mechanical and almost too perfect, right? I just felt it was a good ad to run with him. But this has been a good show to run with the two of you. Abigail, Carla, thank you so much. It's been great to be with you. Thanks all for listening. This has been The Boss and the Gloss on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.